This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Here are 12 of the stories we're following today, and thank you for listening. Again, any comments, any thoughts, any ideas for topics or episodes, please feel free to text me at 773-766-5322. We'll also have another podcast today on priorities versus quicksand, and we'll talk about that as well in the separate podcast. First, the markets continue to surge as Chairman Powell and the Fed predict interest rates softening next year. See an article this morning, Yahoo Finance. Futures rise as Fed pivot leads to market euphoria. Second, the one-year Treasury has dropped nearly 50 basis points over the last several weeks to 4.9%. That's an incredible drop. For those that are savers and love the high Treasury yields, it is what it is. And they'll start making you think about going a little bit longer duration to try and still pick up 4+% interest rates. Second, the 10-year is back down to around 4%. Third, Pfizer dropped nearly 7% yesterday. Fourth, Carvana, the sort of car electronic dealership, surged 14%. Fifth, bankruptcy filings this year will reach 600 plus. That's the biggest number in a few years. Some of the big name bankruptcies are WeWork, Silicon Valley Bank, Bed Bath & Beyond. Each is its own fascinating story as to why it failed, but absolutely fascinating. Sixth, oil back at about $70 a barrel. Seventh, Moderna has driven up about 12% today on good news on their skin cancer vaccine that they're developing with Merck. So that's about 12%. Eighth, we are always seeking topics for short episodes of the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Almost all of the episodes are 3 to 10 minutes. Always feel free to text Scott Becker at 773-766-5322. The next story that we're following, the automakers are all having a good day, particularly the electric automakers. Rivian, Lucid, Tesla, Ford, all on the rise today. Rivian signing a specific deal with AT&T to move part of the AT&T in a pilot to electricals. So that's good news there. I want to thank, nice story, I want to thank John Prunskis, the great pain management doctor. He's one of the first person to buy a copy of Blocking and Tackling, 60 Keys to Building a Business and Managing Your Money. This is the first edition of this book. It'll be much improved, the second edition. Looking forward to people's comments on it. Thank you to Steve Gordon and Bill Bloom for specific help on it, as well as Grace Lynn Keller. 10th, my hat is off to Jessica Cole, the CEO and president of Becker's Healthcare, for the year that her and her magnificent team have put in. Just that's another story we're following. Finally, one of the last stories we're following today is I watch closely, and my caveat is, or my disclaimer is, I'm an investor in Andreessen Horowitz. I watch very closely what Julie Yu and Vinita Agrawala are doing. Incredibly brilliant leaders there in investing in biotech and healthcare and more. I love following what they're doing. Absolutely brilliant. Again, A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz, one of the brightest people, brightest groups in venture capital, led up there by Julie Yu and Dr. Agrawala. Fantastic. Thank you so much for listening to this version of the Becker Private Equity Business Podcast. We'll be back with you later today with a podcast on priorities versus quicksand, the daily challenge.